Here is something that will bother you if you let yourself think about it long enough. You have probably watched a woman you know, maybe a woman you were genuinely interested in, completely ignore a good man who treated her well, only to go running back to a man who barely gave her the time of day. And if you have ever been that good man, the one who showed up, who was consistent, who made his interest clear and his intentions honest, only to watch her choose someone who treated her like an option, then you already know exactly how confusing and frustrating this pattern can be. What you probably do not know is why it keeps happening. The uncomfortable truth is that most women are not consciously choosing men who do not value them. They are not sitting down and deciding that they want to be treated poorly. What is actually happening runs much deeper than a simple bad choice. It is rooted in psychology, in the way attraction is wired, in the way uncertainty and emotional tension get confused with genuine connection. The man who is too available, too eager, and too easy to read triggers something in a woman's brain that works against him no matter how good his intentions are. And the man who is harder to pin down, whose attention feels earned rather than freely given, triggers something completely different, something that feels, to her, a lot like attraction. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are getting into one of the most talked about and most misunderstood dynamics in modern dating. We are breaking down why women seem to only want men who do not value them, what is actually driving that pattern beneath the surface, and most importantly, what it means for you as a man who wants to show up authentically without sabotaging your own chances. This is not about becoming cold or playing games. This is about understanding human psychology honestly, so you can stop making moves that work against you without even knowing it. Let us get into it. 1. The man who was too good was actually the problem. There is a pattern that plays out constantly in dating, and most men never see it coming. A man shows up with everything a woman claims she wants. He is attentive, honest, consistent, and genuinely interested. He makes his intentions clear early. He does not play games. He treats her well from the very beginning, and instead of that working in his favor, it somehow works against him. She pulls back. She loses interest. She starts seeing him as a friend, and he is left completely confused about what he did wrong when the answer is that he did everything right, just in completely the wrong order. She met a guy who was the definition of what she thought she wanted. He texted back immediately, planned thoughtful dates, never made her guess where she stood, and was openly crazy about her from day one. On paper, it was perfect. In reality, she found herself feeling suffocated without being able to explain why. There was no challenge, no tension, nothing to figure out. And as much as she wanted to feel grateful, what she actually felt was bored. She ended things and 3 weeks later was deeply invested in a man who took 2 days to reply to her messages. This is not a story about women being irrational. It is a story about how attraction actually works versus how we think it should work. Attraction is not purely a response to good behavior. It is a response to emotional tension, to uncertainty, to the feeling that something valuable might not be guaranteed. When everything is handed over freely and immediately, the brain does not register it as precious. It registers it as ordinary. The man who was too good was not rejected because he was good. He was rejected because he removed every element of tension that makes attraction grow. Being a good man is never the problem. Giving everything away before she has developed the emotional investment to receive it is. That is the distinction most men miss, and it changes everything once you understand it. 2. Why her brain reads your kindness as weakness. This is one of the hardest things for a good man to hear, but it needs to be said clearly. When you lead with kindness before a woman has developed genuine respect for you, her brain does not always register it as strength. It registers it as neediness. Not because kindness is wrong, but because kindness without boundaries sends a signal that you are willing to give without requiring anything in return. And to a woman's instincts, a man with no requirements is a man with no standards. A man with no standards is a man she cannot fully respect. Attraction for women is deeply tied to perception of value. When a man is too agreeable, too accommodating, and too eager to please early on, he accidentally communicates that her approval is something he desperately needs. That desperation, even when it comes wrapped in kindness and good intentions, is felt immediately. She may not be able to articulate it, but something inside her shifts. The comfort he is trying to create actually creates the opposite effect. The men women tend to stay most attracted to are not necessarily the ones who treat them best in the beginning. They are the ones who have a clear sense of who they are and what they will and will not accept. That quiet confidence, that sense that he has a life and standards he is not willing to compromise just to keep her comfortable, is what makes a woman feel like she is dealing with someone worth pursuing. It creates a dynamic where she has to bring something to the table rather than simply receiving everything from his. So the lesson here is not to stop being kind. Kindness is one of the most attractive qualities a man can have in a relationship that has already been built on mutual respect. The lesson is to lead with your identity and your standards first, and let your kindness be something she experiences as a reward for showing up correctly, not something she receives automatically, just for being present. 3. The moment you became too available and lost. Everything. Availability is not attractive on its own. This is something most men are never taught, and it costs them more than they realize. When a woman can reach you at any time, when you always respond immediately, when you are always free whenever she wants to see you, you stop feeling like a man with a full life and start feeling like a man whose life revolves around her. And a man whose world centers entirely around a woman he is still trying to win is a man who has already lost significant ground without knowing it. Women are attracted to men who have something going on, not because they want to be ignored or made to feel unimportant, but because a man with purpose, priorities, and boundaries is genuinely more attractive than a man who is permanently on standby. When you are always available, she never gets the chance to miss you. And missing someone is one of the most powerful generators of genuine emotional investment. You cannot manufacture that feeling in a woman who never has to wonder where you are. The shift happens gradually, and most men do not notice it until it is too late. At first, she appreciated the attention. Then it started feeling expected. Then it started feeling like pressure. Then she started pulling back, and he responded by becoming even more available, trying to fix the distance, which only made things worse. The more he chased the gap, the wider it became, because what she needed was not more of him. She needed to feel like he had enough going on that she had to earn a place in his time. Protecting your availability is not a game. It is a reflection of how much you value your own time and energy. A man who is selective about where he places his attention is a man who understands his own worth. And that understanding is felt by every woman around him, whether she admits it or not. 4. She does not want to be chased. She wants to do the chasing. Most men have been told that pursuing a woman hard is how you show her you are serious. That the more effort you pour in early, the more she will recognize your value and respond. But what actually happens is the opposite. The harder you chase, the faster she moves in the other direction, and the more confused you become about why your effort is not working. Women are wired to want what feels slightly out of reach, not because they enjoy cruelty, but because the brain assigns higher value to things that require some effort to obtain. When you are too easy to have, you stop feeling valuable. When she has to put in a little effort to get your attention and keep it, her investment grows naturally, and so does her attraction. The dynamic shifts completely when a man stops chasing and starts leading. Instead of following her energy, he sets the pace. Instead of always initiating, he creates space for her to step forward. That space is not emptiness. It is an invitation, and when a woman who is genuinely interested feels that invitation, she will walk through it on her own terms. This is not about playing hard to get or being deliberately cold. It is about having enough going on in your life that chasing any woman feels unnecessary. A man who is truly busy building something, growing something, living something, naturally creates the kind of pull that no amount of chasing ever could. 5. Why uncertainty feels like attraction to a woman. This is the part that frustrates most good men the most, and honestly it should. A woman can be completely uninterested in a man who is kind, clear, and consistent, while being completely consumed by a man who gives her just enough to stay hooked, but never enough to feel secure. That push and pull, that hot and cold pattern, gets mistaken by her brain for something deep and meaningful. And the man creating that uncertainty often has no idea how much power he is accidentally holding. She had been talking to two men at the same time without fully realizing she was comparing them. One was steady, warm, and always made his feelings clear. The other was unpredictable, sometimes distant, sometimes intensely present. She knew logically which one was better for her, but every time the second one reached out after going quiet, her heart jumped in a way the first one never triggered. She chose the uncertain one and spent the next several months trying to figure him out. The brain responds to unpredictability with heightened focus and emotional energy. When a man is consistent, the brain relaxes. When a man is unpredictable, the brain stays alert and engaged, trying to solve the puzzle. That alertness gets confused with excitement, and that excitement gets confused with attraction. It is not love. It is anxiety, wearing the costume of chemistry. Understanding this protects you in two ways. First, it stops you from taking it personally when a woman seems more drawn to chaos than to your consistency. Second, it teaches you that a small amount of natural unpredictability, not manipulation but genuine independence, keeps attraction alive in a way that total predictability never will. 6. The difference between a man she respects and a man she uses. There is a very clear line between a man a woman respects and a man she simply takes advantage of, and that line is almost always drawn by the man himself. A man who has boundaries, who knows what he will and will not accept, who does not bend his standards just to keep a woman comfortable, earns respect naturally. A man who absorbs poor treatment without addressing it, who keeps giving without receiving, who mistakes tolerance for love, becomes someone she uses without even feeling guilty about it. Women do not set out to use good men on purpose. What happens is that a man with no boundaries creates a dynamic where there are no consequences for taking him for granted. She pulls back, and he pursues harder. She treats him poorly, and he becomes more accommodating. Every time he responds to bad behavior with more effort, he teaches her that his time and energy have no real value, because he hands them over regardless of how she shows up. Respect in a woman's eyes is earned through how a man carries himself, not through how much he gives. A man who speaks up when something is not right, who is willing to walk away from what does not serve him, who does not make her the center of his universe before she has earned that position, is a man she has to take seriously. That seriousness is the foundation of genuine respect. The man she respects is not perfect, and he is not harsh. He is simply someone who knows his worth and lives by it quietly and consistently. That kind of man does not get used because he never creates the conditions for it in the first place. 7. How to be the man she cannot figure out without playing games. Here is the honest criticism most men need to hear. You have been so focused on being liked that you forgot to be interesting. You made yourself completely readable, completely available, and completely predictable, and then wondered why she stopped feeling anything. Being a good man is not the problem. Being a boring, boundaryless, approval-seeking version of a good man is the problem, and that is something only you can fix. Stop shrinking yourself to fit what you think she wants. A man who has genuine passions, real goals, and a life he is actively building does not need to manufacture mystery. He already has it naturally. When you are truly invested in your own growth, you become the kind of man whose attention feels like something worth earning, because it clearly does not come free to just anyone. Learn to sit with silence and stillness without panicking. Not every gap in conversation needs to be filled. Not every period of distance needs to be chased. When you stop reacting to her every move and start focusing on your own direction, the dynamic shifts on its own. She starts paying attention to you in a way she never did when you were constantly available and easy to read. The goal is not to become cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable. The goal is to become so genuinely full as a man, so grounded in who you are and where you are going, that no woman's approval feels necessary for your confidence. That energy is the most attractive thing you can bring to any dynamic. Build that, and everything else will follow. Here is the truth that most people are too polite to say out loud. Women do not actually want men who treat them badly. They want men who treat themselves well enough that they simply will not accept being treated badly. That distinction is everything. The man who understands his own value, who leads with standards instead of neediness, who is too busy building a real life to chase anyone who is not equally invested, that man becomes almost impossible to ignore. And that is not a game. That is just a man who finally got it right. Everything covered in this video comes down to one shift in mindset. Stop trying to be what you think she wants and start becoming the fullest, most grounded version of who you actually are. The right woman will not need you to perform or shrink or chase. She will simply recognize what is in front of her and show up accordingly. And the women who do not recognize it were never going to be right for you anyway. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been the man who gave everything and still lost her? Or have you made this shift and watched the dynamic change completely? Drop your experience in the comments below. I read every single one, and I will be responding personally because this is exactly the kind of conversation that needs to happen more. You watch this for a reason. Now go and actually live it.